Greetings, everyone. My name is Alice Kimbrough, and I'm going to be your host this evening for the Speaker Bureau series, sponsored by AHEC, the Area Health Education Centers program, and Project Brotherhood. The mission of AHEC is to enhance access to quality healthcare, particularly primary and preventative care, by improving the supply and distribution of healthcare professionals via strategic partnerships with academic programs, community, and professional organizations. Founded in Chicago, the mission of Project Brotherhood is to increase health awareness in Black men by training Black men and providing the preventive health messages and literature in a cultural and gender specific way. And with that, let's get into the conversation. Tonight we have Febe Frias, a junior enrolled in the public health program at the University of Illinois Chicago. Um, they aspire to leverage their education or advocating for children in need. Upon graduating with a bachelor's degree in public health, Febe envisions pursuing a master's degree in social work to make a lasting impact on the lives of vulnerable children. Despite the demanding schedule of the three part-time jobs alongside full-time studies, Febe dedicates their free time to volunteering and expressing creativity through artwork. Febe, thank you for coming in tonight to talk.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we're going to start a little bit general stuff. So you're in public health. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and what sparked your interest in public health?
Yeah, so applying to UIC because I was originally a transfer student. Um, I did research and I was like, all right, there's no bachelor's in social work. Okay, so what's another route? And what I really loved is that the bachelor's in public health really, it doesn't just give you this like narrow, like this is the path. It's like it gives you so many options, and social work and so many other careers fall into this field. And so I really love that public health gave me this like broader view on not just one career path, but everything. I mean, we're talking about being a doctor, epidemiology, social work. I mean, anything, you name it, and it all falls together. And I like how, in one way or another, some of them align with one another. And so I love that public health is going to give me the knowledge that I need in order to move into my master's degree in social work. And so that's something that I really love about this program and why I chose it rather than trying to find another school that just had a social work program.
Yeah, public health. I love the fact that public health really does touch everything that encompasses normal life, and I think there's a beautiful merging between both public health and social work. Do you do anything outside of school? Any volunteering, anything like that that goes hand in hand with your public health degree?
So I wanted to, as a junior now, would I decided to get an internship this summer, and I was trying to find one that I would really enjoy, and I ended up applying to be an intern, a One Health intern for Paws Medical Center. They're located in Little Village, but I will say it is one of my favorite places to volunteer, and it was everything that I never expected it to be. Because although like an internship feels like it's like you learn first and then you do the experience, it felt like the opposite. It felt like I got to get hands-on experience first, and because I got the hands-on experience, like I was able to apply everything that I'm learning in school to what I was doing. So as a One Health intern, we learned that One Health is how the environment, the people, and the animals are all interconnected. Like you can't separate one from the other.
Mhm.
And so what I like about Pause is that there are a couple of like different programs they do, like trap, neuter, release, where maybe they'll go to a specific neighborhood where there's like so many cats that are not neutered or spayed. They'll trap them, take them back to the medical center, they'll spay and neuter them, and then once they have healed, they'll release them back into their neighborhood in hopes that there won't be like an overflow of like reproduction, because we have an overflowing number of cats throughout Chicago. And so that program has been really essential because they have been able to, I would say, cap to a certain extent the number of cats that are reproduced in Chicago. And so I've gotten the privilege of being able to work with both cats and dogs, because as a volunteer, there's different levels. There's level 1, there's level 2, and level 3, and then there's staff. As a level 1 volunteer, you get to handle like the puppies and the kittens, like all the easy animals, the ones that are friendly. Level 2 is kind of like it's like the next step. It's like maybe they're a little bit more standoffish. Maybe you have to take extra caution with them. Level 3 is maybe if they're a bit more like, I don't want to use the word aggressive, but sometimes these animals have been through so much. And so they're very unfamiliar with people that are just trying to help and who are nice, right? To them, it's like, oh, I'm just this big person, in size. And so you have to handle them with even more care. And so it's usually oftentimes people that have like the physical strength to also, because sometimes they're big dogs. So I am a level 1 volunteer. I usually handle a lot of the like puppies and kittens because it's like my go-to. And I would say one of the things that I love doing there is learning animal behavior and learning how to interact with them with what they're telling me with their bodies, because animals can't, talk to you and tell you like don't go near me, or like I'm a little shy. So sometimes, depending, like if you go up to them and you see them through the glass door or in their like cage, sometimes they'll come up to you. And sometimes they're a little standoffish, and sometimes they need to go for walks, especially if they're dogs. So like I'll open up the cage or like the door, and if they're still scared, what we're taught is to lower yourself. So you usually like kneel down a little bit, and then you turn your back to them. That's trying to signal them like, we're not here to hurt you. I'm here being friendly. It's just we're just hanging, you and me. And so the animals finally, like I've had really great experiences with like dogs who were just too scared to come out, and like they wouldn't go to the bathroom. And finally, all it took was just for me to stay there for, even if it was just 30 minutes of me just sitting there and petting the dog. Like it eventually learned like, oh, this person's not here to hurt me. All right, let's go outside now. Like I really have to go to the bathroom. Please take me. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, that sounds like your is developing a lot of compassion for all living creatures. But I like the fact that you mentioned the kind of like the concept of One Health, of everything is interconnected. How can you connect the learning about, working with animals and stray animals around Chicago to maybe your public health studies? Or have you, delved deeper into that connection?
So because I'm now a junior entering into like my like more of my public health studies, we just got into like my class this semester is talking even more about One Health, and how what animals do kind of affects us, like whether I want to make sure I explain this well, but oftentimes animals carry diseases, and I will say, depending on like which neighborhood you're in Chicago, sometimes you have an overflow of animals and maybe not so much. Some of them carry diseases that they can give to us or we could give to them. That's one way, because sometimes when it comes to One Health, sometimes while they're all interconnected, one directly affects one while the other affects the other. That's why at Paws they have us wear PPE around like new intakes and puppies, so that we don't give them diseases and they don't give us diseases. But for public health, we're still learning even more on that. It's diving into that topic directly this semester.
Okay, that's still really good. You have a lot to experience on the public health field. So do you have, in public health, like we mentioned, we talked about earlier, it's very broad and there's a lot of things you can do with your degree and with a combination of social work that makes things change exponentially, you know? Um, are there specific areas within public health that you've seen maybe so far that you're most passionate about?
So I will say there's like so many areas. When it comes to like public health, like I keep thinking, how can I choose one over the other? Like they all fascinate me. I think one that I feel most attentive to is child health, and just child welfare in general. I feel like ever since middle school, I've always been passionate about child welfare and their well-beings, especially me being adopted in a family, a complicated family, mind you. And I guess from the family that I grew up with, it lit this fire inside of me, this passion of wanting to advocate for kids because they can't advocate for themselves. And sometimes they don't know what they want or what they need. And so that's definitely an area that has always sparked an interest for many, many years now.
Mhm.
And it's always one that I always come back to, even when I have other interest areas like immigrant health, um, the current migrants that are here in Chicago. All of these fascinate me, and I would love to be able to do something to, help them, especially because these migrant families come with children. Like that would definitely be, that's definitely an area of interest where I'm like, I feel like as a social worker, I would love to help out the community the best way that I can and help provide them with the resources that they need to be able to help their families and to live essentially.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have any leads on how you can get involved at all? I know that might be, I don't know, that an extra step, or another step ahead. But have you, looked around to see places where you can get involved and feed that passion?
So I do know that one of my professors had mentioned during class how UIC law was getting involved with that, and there was something else that UIC was doing. I'd have to re-ask her again, because we're currently working on some projects, and so one group who is filled with like a lot of my classmates from my cohort who are specifically interested in law and specifically interested in helping migrants. I would definitely want to work with my classmates who are, want to be lawyers and specifically want to help this community, because I think that while they're not wanting to be social workers like I am, I think that the difference in field work, them wanting to be lawyers and me wanting to be a social worker, we can definitely work hand in hand, because I know that the ideas that they have plus the ideas that I'm having, I believe that we can work together as like a cohort to
Mhm.
do create some big change.
Oh yeah,
Now,
no, of course. That is, yeah, I think the best part about being in school is being able to collaborate with people who you would probably never met, like, from anywhere else. And I think, um, how does UIC kind of make that kind of that or how's your classes develop, or how does that cultivate that ability to collaborate with students, students who have a similar passion as you do?
that's a good question. So I believe that like all the public health classes that I'm taking this semester like range from like 2 to 3 hours long.
Mhm.
And it's not just like the professor giving lecture, it's half of it's lecture and the other half is discussion with your classmates. So what I like about, say, my Monday class, I would say, ironically, this is my favorite class ever, and it's 3 hours long, but she this professor keeps us engaged the minute that you walk in and you sit down. She gives lecture, but she intertwines lecture and discussion rather than doing lecture and then discussion, like on the other half of class. Like she intertwines it to the point where like I will talk to this classmate who I'm never sat next to before, never talked to. And some of these people, like I had class with last semester, and I'm still talking to people I've never talked with before. And
Mm-hmm.
so it creates a sense of community, and not feeling so alone, especially in your major, when professors, I guess, nurture this environment where you're able to, I guess, develop ideas with each other and
Mm-hmm.
really, I guess, support each other. Because sometimes I guess it's easy to think that like maybe my idea is not good enough to say in front of a class. Like maybe people think like it's dumb, and you sort of experience this sense of embarrassment. And so when you have this like one-on-one or even like a small group of people, and they start building off of you, like, yeah, that's a really great idea, or like maybe this idea plus this, like it helps nurture this sense of like confidence and like this idea of like I can do this. Like if they believe in me, like I believe in me. And so I that's what I love about my classes this semester specifically, is because I feel like all my professors have done a very wonderful job at cultivating the sense of community with my classmates.
Yeah, that's so in all of that also, I was thinking about it when you mentioned it, like the ability to almost like a safety net that your classes give you. Do you feel like that do you feel like you're confident you feel confident enough to, you know, take on some of the challenges of public health? Or do you feel like they give you the tools to be able to, or at least like you said, the confidence to collaborate and go out in the world and make those changes?
I think that as an individual alone, there's only so much I can do. You
Mhm.
know, I think as individuals alone, there's only so much we can do. I like to believe that as a community, we're able to impact so much more. Um, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I wouldn't be able to like tackle on a challenge, but I would like the idea of being able to have like my cohort or this like community helping me, because not only a is it we're helping this community, but it helps build this idea of like you're not alone with this. Because sometimes when you're tackling on these big public health issues, sometimes it feels like you're getting way in over your head, and while you're in the middle of helping, you're like, I don't know where to go from here. Like
Mhm.
I got this far. I thought it was gonna, pan out this way, and like things change. And that's the thing about public health, is that everything is changing. Nothing is ever the same. And
Mhm.
so the thing about working with a community of individuals who are working in the same like major but different fields, right? Um, they help you think about all these things and think through them, and it's like a wall. Like you can bounce off
Mhm.
ideas off of one another, and it helps to just. It's like, all right, this idea that I was thinking was terrible, but I have these other 10 other ideas that work because I had this community of people helping me. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. So after, so I'm circling back to the internship, if we can.
Mhm.
So after the internship, what skills are you going to take from, or skills what you've learned from your internship to carry back into the class, and then maybe even carry on into your career that you
Mhm.
may want to do?
Mhm. That's a good question. Um, I'll circle back to what you had mentioned, which was a lot of learning, a lot of empathy.
Mhm.
I will say that oftentimes when it comes to wanting to go into the public health field, you have to have like a sense of empathy, especially for the community that you are trying to help. And that definitely helps me in the classroom, especially when I am working with classmates. It not only gives me empathy, but patience. Because sometimes, like, maybe it's on Monday, and like Mondays are not always the days. Like, I feel like doing that internship that I did has given me even more patience than what I've already had to be able to work with my classmates. Even if sometimes like the ideas are crazy and I'm like, this sounds like way in over our heads. Like we wouldn't be able to do this until we're like 31, right? But but at the same time, it gives me enough patience and empathy to know, like, you know what, like I appreciate this thought and idea because I understand that it you took time and thought to think about this. And so those are two, I'd say, feelings and emotions that I will take away. For the classroom, when it comes to interacting during discussion and in lecture, I would say it's helped me to critically think better. I feel like throughout the years, we all developed different levels of critical thinking. Not saying I was a bad one before my pause internship, but I felt like it gave me a better sense of the real world. And it's different hearing about what goes on with the environment, with the animals and diseases, but it's a whole other thing when you actually get to see it with your own eyes. When you get to see like the animals who are sick, when you get to see like the conditions that animals are living in around in the neighborhood. Because I've had the opportunity of like going like not directly in, but like from like the window, like when they're doing the operations or they're getting ready to like intubate them and everything. And it hits you differently. It's like, wow, this is the real world that we're living in. Some of them are sick and some of them are terminal. And as a volunteer, sometimes it gets difficult to live with that, knowing that like that things are out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. That's a really good thing to to carry it with you. Like I said, the compassion, but also the real world look of knowing what the real world is. And I think that's some valuable information. Like I think internships are great in that they do allow you to work hands-on and see things with your own eyes that you've only seen in books or on TV or any other social media or medias you consume. So with all that, moving forward, I think, where would you what's your career aspirations in the future? Like if you can do anything, be anyone in public health with and social work, what does your future career look like?
So that aspect is a lot trickier. I feel like although social work is like specific, it's also broad because there's so many like different types of social workers that you can be and the different communities that you can help. Part of me has always been leaning towards getting like a licensed clinical, like my licensure to be a licensed clinical social worker. Because I am also a big person on mental health. I feel like growing up, it's something that I struggled with. It's something that I have been intentionally trying to work through. And I would really love to be able to provide those mental health services to underserved communities. Because unfortunately, even $30 a session is a lot for some people. And so I would love to be able to provide those services because and not even to just children. Mind you, I wouldn't mind being a therapist for even adults as well. But I know that a lot of the times with underserved communities, there are so many hardships that they are going through, the things that they have to do to be able to live the next day and to support their families. And I would love to be able to, while I can't directly fix that problem of like the resources that they need, maybe I could help them clear up some of that struggle that they're having, whether it's the depression, the anxiety, PTSD. And so I know that oftentimes when it comes to talking about the hardships and you have someone to listen, it makes it a little easier to go through your day. And your week, right? And especially when it's consistent. I wouldn't want it to be like a 5 sessions, all right, move on to like the next community. No, I want to be consistent. I want to be there, and I want to make a lasting impact and not just a temporary bandage to a long, like a big problem.
Mm, yeah, that's important. Being there, like I think that was what I'm thinking about the most. Just being there, consistent, being a point of stability in someone's life is extremely important. You know, I think that's something that we political professionals have to remember is that sometimes there is chaos in everyone's lives, and we should be, that person or as aware of all the things that these people are dealing with on a daily basis.
Mhm.
Um, so, do you have any other passions that may intersect with public health outside of academia?
Mm, I know you mentioned in the bio, I'm like a huge art person.
Hmm.
I I I have loved making art since like childhood. Like childhood was like making random scribbles. I loved it. And since then, it's been my way to express everything that I have inside out into the world. And I kind of replaced journaling with like painting as of recent because I feel like like no one can directly like see exactly what you're going through necessarily.
Hmm.
Whereas if you're reading it, like people know exactly what you're going through. But I feel like a painting or any piece of artwork carries more of a message than a million words could ever do. And so something I love about my art that I'm hoping to be able to bring some of my passion for art into the public health field, whether it's through art therapy. Um, I don't know. I That's something that I never wanted a career in art, but I always
Hmm.
knew that I wanted to bring some kind of my passion for art into whatever I'm going into, whether it's like a community mural for like the community that I'm helping. A mural would be so cool, by the way. Um, Especially because like it's something that people see when you're passing by, and like people are like, "Wow, this is cool." Like I don't know who did this or why they did it, but like it's beautiful. It tells something, and it really gets other people to think. And so I'm hoping that art is something I can bring into my career, and I hope it is a way to I hope it can help other people just as much as it's helped me, because I feel like art has been like a lifeline for me, and it's really saved me from a lot of hardships that I've gone through.
That's wonderful. I agree. Art really does beautify space. Um, can you tell me what type of medium do you use, or type of? We said paint. Okay. Any other media that you use in your art?
Uh, I will I love that question because I will just respond with I do everything and anything.
I love
I I I had a friend like come to my dorm, and they were looking at all my paintings, and they're like, normally artists stick to like a certain style of painting, but they're like, you're everywhere. Like you paint this way, you paint dramatically, you paint simple, like, and I'm like, that's just me. I like being able to I what something I love about art is that I feel like there's endless possibility. So sometimes I'll branch out to different things that'll help me like cope. Like as of recent, I've also gotten into knitting. That's a form of art. Embroidering. I like scrapbooking. I like making anything I can build. I'm trying to build I want to build a little dollhouse for my niece who will be turning 1 in August, but
oh.
I still got a long ways to go. But for me, art is like, I never stick to one. I like to go to so any kind of art you can think of, just think that I either have done it or will do it.
That's amazing. That's a lot, and I'm thinking about so many other things. Um, yeah. So as a student, with all this going on, do you have any, you're like, so you're your junior year, and you've been immersed in public health for probably at least a year now, or maybe less semester. Um, Based on your experiences, what advice would you give to other students considering a field in public health?
Um, Make sure it's something you're passionate about. I think it's important when going into the public health field. There's a lot of people who are undecided in public health. And that's great, right? It gives you time to think about it. But I feel like it's important to, before entering into that major, to think about like all the possible careers and what is it that aligns with your core values and the things that you want changed into the world. Like, what is it that you want to do with it? Because for me, I feel like my empathy just grows bigger for children, like the more and more things that I see. And so I knew from a very young age, like social work was the field I wanted to go into immediately. But for some people, it takes longer than, middle school. Some people it takes a year or 2 years or even 3 years into college. Um, so I'd say like carefully think about like your values and the things that you want change, but also maybe seek out the advice from other students as well. I know talking with like my cohort, but also just like other juniors or other people my age, they would tell me like different career paths that they're going into in public health. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that you could do that. Like, I didn't know that this was even a job until like someone mentioned it to me. Um, it never hurts to get advice from like your peers and even the professors. It even sometimes the professors can feel a little scary to go to because like maybe you don't have them as professors, or even the director of the public health program, like the even higher ups, they want you to go into their office, they want you to ask questions, and I feel like they value the students who go even when you're not asked to, because it shows them like, I really want to learn, maybe you can guide me to figure out what I want to do in not social work, public health.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That sounds great. I think those are really good tips. Like, just in general, I think, yeah. Also, um, y- you mentioned like there may be some challenges. Well, one of the challenges I think for sure is probably deciding if you want to be in public health. But what were some of the sound? What can you share a challenge that you faced and how you overcame it in your studies?
Um, it's not a hard one to think about because I feel like I had quite a few. Um, Honestly, I feel like, and this is kind of a general thing too, it's learning to be okay with asking for help. I think oftentimes when you're in college, people think like, all right, you're an adult now, like it's time for you to like take on the world, right? And oftentimes we forget that even as adults, it's okay to ask for help. And we're not in high school or middle school anymore where like the teacher's going to come to you, you have to go to them. And it's, I guess, retraining your brain to be okay with asking for help. And it took a lot of me like writing to myself, it's okay to ask for help, it's okay to ask for help. And sometimes even going to the professor feels scary, so I took it even smaller than that. I went to my peers, and then if they couldn't help me, then I took it a step up and went to like a peer support advisor. And then if I needed more help, I would go to the TA, step up. And then if I needed even more help, I take it a step up and go to the professor. But asking for help was like such a big thing for me. And there was no reason for me to struggle as much as I did. Um, but even then, sometimes you do have professors who it's a little scary to ask for help, or sometimes maybe they're just as tired as we are, and maybe they don't want to be in their office hours. So maybe just asking for like the TA for help feels a little less daunting. So which is
Mhm.
something I have preferred to do. It makes asking for help less daunting. and it's like asking another person who's like been in my shoes like just recently, like for help, and that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
That's one of the many challenges in specifically in my major, because I would say before my major I was like coasting through, and then I got into the major and I was on the struggle bus.
Hmm. I see. I see. Yeah, I think asking help is one of the hardest things we will all have to do at some point. Um, so as we're wrapping up, is there any final thoughts you want to have or want to share for the audience and students, current professionals um, out there in podcast land that may want to that are listening or maybe listening?
That's such a big question. um, uh, I would say one thing that I've kind of taken away from being in, I would say in college in general, but even more so when I got to the public health field, is even when it feels like everything is working against you, just keep going.
Mm.
And that goes a long way, because even after college and you're in your specific like career path, it's going to always feel like something is working against you. And sometimes you just have to hold on to like, I just got to keep going. Because the moment that we just wave the white flag and we give up, well, going to school was all for nothing. Those thousands of dollars was all for nothing.
Very true.
And so it's just, I think it's important to look back and think how hard, like when you're like in your junior, senior year, and I know I've been thinking about this a lot. I just keep thinking about, you know what, these last 2 years were just as hard too. And I remember being in them and I thought I was not going to make it through. And then I made it through. And I was like, you know what, this year is no different. It's going to feel just as hard, maybe even harder, but I will make it through to the next one and the next one. And I just have to remember, like, look back. I've come this far. You just got to keep going.
That is powerful stuff. Definitely just keep going in public health. Like, yes. Well, that will be wrapping up tonight's session. Thank you so much, Febe, for being here tonight with us to talk about your experiences and your career, your academic journey.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak.
Yeah, no problem. So for everyone else, we'll see you next time for the next Speaker Bureau series, and I hope you all have a great night.